My name is Jake Stack. I'm a singer-songwriter from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. This is the process of making the record Prove It. Inviting some sort of filming, like the one thing I don't want to do is be like, well, I don't want to come across in any specific way. Even though I have a goal in mind, all I'm going to try and do is be genuine on camera, and then, yeah, like sort of the same thing with my music. What people do with it from there is sort of what they want to do or interpret, but I do want to put it out there, you know.
The Artisan Studio at Brucemore has been here for about 3 or 4 years. In the region, there isn't really a place for original artists to cultivate and facilitate achieving goals as a professional artist. Brucemore has always been kind of poised to be a hub for upcoming artists who want to create their own fingerprint. The moment we thought of Jake as a candidate was when we first heard him play out. And when we saw him, he was very confident on stage, and he was a great performer. But not only that, his songs were really solid, and you can tell that he puts a lot of work into his shows and into his music.
He understands the business side of the music business enough, which is how this film came about. Not our idea, his. He looked at it as, I want people to be able to know where this music comes from, get to know me through the music. So he's a true rock and roll guy from that, but he understands the music business of today, which is how you get this film.
So really, like, I mean, those garage bands was that. I think we played like out a couple times opening for my dad's band, you know. But when I was 18 or so, I started the band The Unincorporated, just with some friends, and that's the band that I've been in up until I started doing solo. Yeah, it was me and my friend Jesse started it. That band has had like 25 people in it. It's kind of like, it's kind of an extension of the like just roping whoever had a drum kit and guitars into coming over to my garage. I think I've grown a very thick skin to the short-term ups and downs. I think through my experience playing hockey and then even sort of my early experience with music, like you can't do that to yourself if you want to do this for a long time. And I think, you know, music, one of the things is people burn out really quick. And I think in the people that I've seen who burn out, it's because they're very up and down with every positive and negative. And it's like, if you knew that you were going to do something for a long time, you would of course not be as worried about it. But when each individual thing feels like the most important thing in the world, that's gonna give you those crazy ups and downs, and that will take a toll and burn you out. But like through the pandemic of being isolated and then like, okay, I'll do stuff just on my own with an acoustic guitar. Like the freedom I've found through that, just sort of leading me to like this realization, like this is probably the best way for me to do this. May 20th, we're at Flat Black Studios. The closest town is Lone Tree, Iowa. I think we come in from Hills, technically speaking. Yeah, we're just here to start recording some songs for the record. So the first song's called Prove It, and it's probably the title track to the record. And Prove It is actually the newest one. I wrote it the most recently, and I realized that it kind of gave a theme which made picking the rest of the record easier. And the song is really about just the last, I suppose, year or two of my life where I think I was very committed to sort of my self-image and how I was going to go about things for a long time. And that got challenged pretty profoundly. And so, I mean, the songs are all going to be interrelated about that, but looking at yourself as something to work on as opposed to a finished product and what that's going to mean. And essentially that means you have to prove it every day. You can't just fall into like, well, this is how I am, this is how I do things. Trying to push yourself and the vulnerability that comes with that. Luke Tweedy, this is his studio. He's the engineer I've worked with since I was, I think, 18 the first time I came here, so almost a decade. Yeah, and he's very strict on that. He is an engineer, not a producer. Gerard is playing keys, acoustic, doing Gerard things. He's always the guy in the band with like 4 different instruments around him, which is always fun to have. It definitely makes you feel cool to have that guy. And he's in a producer role. Lincoln's playing bass, I think, primarily, but also probably acoustic guitar. I think there was a ukulele that's tuned like a guitar. They have ideas, so I'm sure they will sound wonderful. So they're both multi-instrumentalists. And then Greg, who's hitting stuff, who's probably my favorite person to have hit stuff, because, yeah, he does it well. Really started, I played a gig with Greg where we were doing, it was like pop hits, but in the style of the 1920s for some sort of root beer festival. It was fun, but it was also like, we rehearsed, I guess. Like, it was very off the cuff and fun, and Greg was the drummer for that.
And here comes Jake, the rock and roll guy, in to sit in with this band, and we had a great time trying to make these songs swing and have people dance. And from that night on, Jake and I got along really well, and I appreciated his spirit and willingness to jump out of the airplane with us. With Jake, I feel like he is finding his own voice. He is true to his own voice. He is authentic to what he's trying to do. And he's on a journey where he is not trying to become something famous or chasing adoration, those kind of things. It's really a creative process. It's a creative life that he's trying to live. It is cool to see that voice get stronger and more confident, and he's just open to where that journey goes. If you ever had like your school friends and like your neighborhood friends meet, and it's just like, I wonder how this is gonna work. Because I've worked with Lincoln and Gerard and Greg multiple times on different projects, had great experience with them, and I've worked with Luke on pretty much every record I've done, had great experiences, and it's now just like I'm in the booth, but I'm like listening to Gerard and Luke talk about something. I'm like, okay, good.
If that makes sense to the artist. This is just for.
We also had my dad come in and play sax at the end of the day, which is always fun because he loves getting to do it, and I love having him in here with us. I mean, in terms of this record particularly, he's a sax player, so anytime I want sax on a record, I just ask him if he's free, and he always is very accommodating and comes out and does it, and seems to enjoy himself. If you talk about music in general, like, he's also a songwriter and played guitar and was in bands from I mean, as long as I can remember. So I always describe it as, you know, his role in music for me is it wasn't a foreign concept that people write songs and play in bands and have instruments. It was just, you know, the same way some people's dads might be really into their lawn or something like that. So I think that helped me, and I got started really young because I thought that was a normal thing that everyone did. It didn't occur to me that it was odd or special in any way. By the time I was old enough to actually hold a guitar, my dad would like have me play single note stuff while he was playing guitar. Like it was a bonding thing, but it was also a way to keep me busy, I think. Like, I'm not bugging him to go do something if he puts a guitar in my hands and, here, play this while I, you know, riff over it, or I'm sure at some points he was working on songs or whatever. So like, to me, that was a big deal. And then, you know, he always had his band going, and again, kind of as soon as I was old enough to hold the guitar and not train wreck things, he would always, you know, want me to get up and play a song, or you know, even when we were younger, or like Shake 'em a Rock or whatever, he was always very encouraging and wanted us to get up and join him in that. Well, this is the last day at Flat Black. We'll move on to Brucemore and hopefully get this record tracked and ready to go. I don't know. It's been great. I mean, I'm stoked. I mean, I think the album's gonna end up having 8 songs on it, so we almost got half done in 3 days, working with an environment that I feel really comfortable in. It also helps because now, you know, I've worked with Gerard and Lincoln on this stuff now, so when we go into the Brucemore stuff, I'll be very comfortable working with them on things as well. And no, it's been great. I'm very happy about it. The tracks are all sounding great. I think I freaked G out a little bit with some of the louder vocals on the one. But he did a great job and responded by helping me contextualize it, and I think it's gonna sound pretty much exactly how I want it. And then after that, we were just like, you know, is there anything we can do without drums? And we started working on Drive acoustic and really just did it live on the floor, which was awesome. So even it was in a pre-production meeting, and we just thought, yeah, here's kind of the general idea for it. And I think it was cool. I think the coolest thing, so talking about doing the sort of heavier vocals on the one song, is I kind of shot my voice out a little bit. So then doing that song acoustic, just straight off the floor, it gave it a really cool, like there's definitely a fragility in it that I've never sang that song with before, but I think it serves the song incredibly well, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. Yeah, I think it was just a really good happenstance that we had sort of a few hours and a song that we all kind of instinctively knew what to do on. Like, I know we were sitting there and Luke was even saying, like, as soon as you add like one overdub, you like hear what the other ones should be. Like, the song very much kind of unfolded organically, and I think it sounds great, and I love it when that happens. So yeah, very productive day. Yeah, I mean, it's all sounding pretty fantastic, so I'm pumped about it. I think, you know, for the first two, that a lot of that comes from the pre-production sessions we had, as to, you know, I mean, specifically with guitar solos, you know, I don't think I did more than 4 or 5 takes on one, which is not how it's been in the past, but I've had to just sort of, well, ate a bug. Okay. In the past, I've just kind of free-formed them, and so it's a longer process, which means you get less done. And those songs were very much, it was more just trying to beat tones and the actual sort of physical thing of what amp, what guitar, what combo of effects, rather than, you know, well, what are we gonna do here? And then sort of capping it off with the end of the day, having a very free, just sort of like, let's just try this and see how it goes. I think it was a great experience, and I'm very grateful for the setup we've got here. Yeah, I mean, from here, I think we've got maybe a week or 2 off, and then we're gonna do more songs at the studio at Brucemore, which is G's home studio, which he works out of. And yeah, I mean, like, we did the demos there, so I'm familiar with it, but it'll definitely be a different setting, but feeling really good after the stuff we got done here going into it. And yeah, I mean, if things continue to go as sort of well as they have, I think we'll have a lot of time to really refine these songs and feel good about them before we put them out. Just grateful for the opportunity, really. I didn't know, you know, when it was offered, I was kind of like, okay, you know, that sounds cool, but really just getting in here and being able to do these songs with their input and knowledge, and just having, you know, the creative people really just there to serve the song, like I'm really seeing the dividends paid for that. Yeah, just very grateful for it all. So looking forward to doing more.
We just got back from Flat Black, and working there was really great. Jake was very comfortable. We didn't change the process much at all, except for the addition of time and having a dialogue between ideas. But now we're gonna go back here to the Artisan Studio, where things will be a little more foreign for him. But to cushion that disorientation, we're gonna bring in his longtime friend and band member and collaborator and fellow musician, Jesse, who he's known since, like, I don't know, probably, I think, like middle school or something. They go way back, and I've heard he's a great guitar player. I'm really looking forward to working with him.
Yeah, they're following the Dave Grohl advice. Yeah. Start young, go into a garage, make 9 bands, play.
Suck for 10 years, and then learn how to be good.
Yeah, they're living that life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We both knew that we both played guitar and that we both liked the same style of music. And one day he hit me up and asked if I'd be willing to play guitar with him. And I said yes. And then we realized we had a lot of really good chemistry as far as writing music and playing guitar. So.
Like the first exchange we had, so like we started the band while I was still playing junior hockey in Pittsburgh. So we like got stuff together, played a couple shows, and then I was gone for the winter again. The song that was the first time like it was fully like just collaborative as opposed to just like get in the room and figure stuff out was a song called Pretend, which was on the first unincorporated EP that we put out. You sent the riff first, I think.
Yeah, I wrote just a random guitar part, and I was like, this is cool, we should turn it into a song. And he's the songwriter, so I sent it to him, and he wrote a full song to it, and it was awesome. There were a lot of times in my life where I felt like I didn't have anybody, you know, to lean on or to turn to. and Jake was always there, always. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way, for sure. The impact he's had on my life and me as a musician, I wouldn't be able to say that, you know what I mean? There was a long period of time where we didn't play music together, and I just didn't realize, like, you know, the positive impact that music and just being around him and hanging out had on me. So I don't even think he could begin to understand, you know, the positive impact he has on my life daily.
Because the sound of Deluxe is way warmer than the SM, but the SM has that grit.
Yeah, we just finished mixing, it's always quicker in person, which is nice. So yeah, it was really just a few small things here or there, and it sounded really good. So I'm happy with the record, for sure. So the new record is called Prove It. I mean, that song came along later. So there was like the initial pre-production stuff in February, and I think 2 or 3 of the songs that ended up on the record actually were written after that. Prove It just gave the most direction for the rest of the songs, and being about myself over the last 2 years or so and the changes that have happened with that. And I think it's also, I think it's something I always try to be conscious of, is it's very easy to get complacent in sort of the DIY music world. And so I felt like with this opportunity, it was like, okay, you have more time, you have more resources, make a better record, you know? And so yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Now it's all sort of said and done. As the songs are distributed, as people get to hear them, as they get to see this film, it's really interesting looking back at somebody who is like, I'm just wanting to work on my tunes and have an opportunity to experiment and do all of those things. From Brucemore's perspective, the success is seeing Jake promoting it, going out there playing show after show after show, that somebody can go, hey, we got to know Jake Stack. In the same way that Jake hopefully gets to go, I've grown to know me as well. Yeah, work hard, be on time, and don't be an ass.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think every song accomplishes what I want it to accomplish, so I'm happy with all of them. I mean, I'd say pre-production was probably of everything that happened, it was the most different and I think the most beneficial. Like, I think I really enjoyed hearing suggestions and part differentiation and different ideas, but then also the element of planning to it. So probably the biggest difference, like guitar-wise, was I pretty much knew all the different possible parts, and that allowed us to track and then focus more on the sort of finite details of tone and stuff like that. And I mean, that kind of goes along with instrument selection. I'm not sitting there trying to figure out a part so I can try 4 or 5 different guitars on it. So that was fun. And I mean, as far as tracking goes, I think the pre-production led to tracking being a lot more seamless and then being able to have more exploratory time as far as like tones and instruments go. The biggest example of where both pre-production and the sort of instrument selection and tracking freedom came in was, I think it was Drinking Alone for sure, where, you know, I had parts and we were playing them and it wasn't quite, and we ended up adding the lap steel to that one, which we ended up using a lot of lap steel on the record in general, which is something I wouldn't have done were I not in this situation. And yeah, it's fun. And now Jesse bought a lap steel, so it's fun. I think, like the end of the song Forever, I don't remember whose idea it was. I don't think it was mine. Or we kind of knew it was gonna end, and then on the day of tracking, we actually went through and figured out, okay, let's do that. And I love that ending now. It's one of my favorite parts on the record. I think the record is interesting because there's some of the like loviest songs, but also some of the most like transparently mentally ill songs I've ever written. And I think people don't usually associate those two things. I hope it's made an interesting piece of art. What goes along with that, I don't know. Aside from creating the album, do I have any other goals for the Artisan Studio? To have these interviews make enough sense so that people who care to watch whatever the result is have the opportunity to know me a little bit. And also to not be an asshole. Yeah, that's pretty much it. My name is Jake Stack. I'm a singer-songwriter from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. This is the process of making the record Prove It, and you can listen to it now wherever you stream music.